Welcome everyone to our presentation on political behavior and the wealth gap in the U.S. We'll dive into several critical topics today, including taxes, money in elections and media, banking and Wall Street, affordable housing, jobs and wages, education affordability, and healthcare.
Each topic reveals key insights into how policies and systematic issues shape economics inequality in America.
We'll also provide the proposed solutions provided by each group to address these challenges based on the research we did with each group. Let's jump right in.
Taxes are one of the key points to an economic policy. Currently, the U.S. tax code favors the rich with deductions and offshore profits. Many big companies pay nothing in taxes, even as they earn billions. Research brought up the proposed 25% plan to ensure that top earners would pay at least a minimum tax rate. This proposal, similar to the Buffett rule, could raise much-needed revenue for necessary services.
However, there are those critics who believe that this type of policy will actually hurt business. On the other hand, many studies have shown that it may actually boost the economy because of the reduction in tax cuts for the high-income individuals while increasing the amount of disposable income for the middle and lower classes. In addition, payroll tax increases implemented in the 1980s also had a very negative impact on unions, making it so much more difficult for workers to bargain for better wages and benefits. Possible solutions for these problems could be the creation of tax incentives for companies that are union-friendly and the introduction of limits on deductions that high-income individuals tend to take advantage of.
For instance, some solutions include putting a cap on allowable reductions, ensuring that the deductions taken are only for activities that are justifiable and legitimate. A comprehensive reform of the carried interest deduction could also raise billions over a 10-year period and provide substantial revenue impact. Another area is the mortgage interest deduction, particularly for high-tax states such as California, because this change needs to be made to have a proper balance in relation to fairness in taxation and also to the affordability of housing for people.
Next up, the influence of money in elections and media. Traditionally, the biggest donors to political campaigns have been very wealthy individuals and corporations. Research taken shows how dark money or undisclosed political donations creates a cycle of influence that favors the top donors.
Media plays a role too. Well-funded outlets can control the narrative, limiting exposure to diverse candidates and ideas. This leaves a huge knowledge gap for voters. Solutions include capping individual donations, limiting anonymous contributions, and offering tax breaks for small donors, but only up to a limit to prevent abuse by the wealthy.
Other solutions include a need to have stricter fact-checking or political adverts to stem the tide of disinformation. And like other countries, public funding for campaigns would give us a far more transparency and accountability. Let's amplify voters' voices over wealthy interests.
The mechanisms of banking and Wall Street play a vital role in shaping wealth distribution in society. However, dissatisfaction with big financial institutions is growing across party lines. Republicans and Democrats have criticized how these institutions perpetuate wealth inequality, prioritizing profits over fairness.
This imbalance is evident in the disconnect between productivity and wages. Since 1979, productivity has increased by 61.8%, but the wages of typical workers have risen only 17.5%. Meanwhile, the top 1% of earners have seen their pay soar by nearly 180%. Financial policies consistently favor shareholders and executives at the expense of workers and small businesses, highlighting the inequality.
Proposed solutions to address these issues include reinstating the Glass-Steagall Act to separate commercial and investment banking, which would reduce risky speculative practices and enhance financial stability. Another proposal is to implement a cap on executive-to-worker pay ratios at 50-1, incentivizing fair pay structures, reducing income inequality, and improving worker morale.
Additional solutions include comprehensive tax reforms to close corporate loopholes, which would recover billions annually to fund essential services like housing, education, and infrastructure. Expanding community reinvestment programs is also proposed, requiring banks to allocate a portion of their profits to underserved areas, thereby stimulating economic growth and creating opportunities for marginalized communities.
Another issue that requires our attention is that of affordable housing. Numerous research sources underline the immense gap between the wages that people are earning and the snowballing cost of housing. Most ominously, it notes that the federal minimum wage has remained stagnant for over 15 years, meaning full-time workers can't even begin to afford a simple one-bedroom apartment, much less a three-bedroom home, as this only further fuels the problem of housing.
There are also disparities across racial groups. Black and Latino families often pay more in property taxes for homes in less affluent areas. These systemic inequalities hold back wealth accumulation and keep people in poverty.
Solutions include raising the minimum wage, creating more affordable housing programs, and reforming the property tax systems to be fair. Also, expanding the access of housing assistance can help bridge the wealth gap.
Our deep research creates a direct link between job markets and the huge wage gaps within them, ultimately tying these back to the overall wealth gap that troubles our society. The fact of unequal incomes has become more striking in recent years, as the top 20% of earners have gained and held on to most of the country's wealth. Adding to this lingering economic problem are issues of wage stagnation, a lack of wage increases over time, and a significant decline in investment directed at public goods.
Gender and racial disparities further compound the issue. Women and minorities earn significantly less, even in comparable roles. Addressing these gaps requires systematic changes, like equitable pay policies and support for diverse hiring practices.
Possible solutions include raising the minimum wage and enforcing equal pay laws can help close pay gaps and reduce wealth disparities, especially for women. Sub-minimum wages, which allow some workers to be paid below the standard minimum, worsen economic inequality and financial instability. Eliminating them would help reduce the wealth gap, particularly for women and marginalized groups.
Education is sometimes referred to as the great equalizer, but increased tuition and student debt make it a barrier for many. Research studied puts into perspective how important affordable education is to closing the wealth gap.
Understaffed early childhood education programs might benefit from increased class sizes in elementary schools. This approach could potentially free up teachers to be reassigned to ECE programs, which are often more understaffed and underfunded than elementary schools. Furthermore, the benefits children gain from smaller class sizes in elementary schools can also be achieved through access to high-quality ECE programs.
Policies that guarantee affordable education are important because they ensure that everyone gets equal and fair opportunities to succeed in life, regardless of the financial background they come from. The cost of healthcare disproportionately affect low and middle income families, which face huge challenges. According to comprehensive research, lack of insurance coverage causes financial instability and poor health outcomes, which in turn perpetuates the cycle of economic inequality.
Solutions would be expanding Medicaid, introducing universal coverage, and capping out-of-pocket expenses in order to reduce disparities. That's evident with countries that have universal health models. They truly show how beneficial equitable access can be.
Other solutions include addressing health inequalities, alleviating financial burdens on marginalized communities, and helping improve their economic mobility. This involves improving healthcare by making it more affordable and accessible, increasing subsidies for low-income families, and expanding Medicare in all states, and supporting community-based care through more funding for local clinics, mobile health units, and telehealth services. Additionally, we need to control costs by lowering drug prices, using generics, and capping out-of-pocket expenses for essential care. These steps can help ensure everyone gets the care they need.
The issues we have talked about today all interrelate with one another, demonstrating the complex and systemic nature of economic inequality that has permeated our society. If we are to effectively tackle the wealth gap between different groups, then it is essential that we have comprehensive and well-designed policies with a strong sense of collective action from every part of the community.
By carefully implementing the solutions we have discussed during this conversation, we can work towards having a society that is fundamentally fairer, one that truly embraces and upholds the principles of opportunity and fairness for all, regardless of their background or circumstance.
Thanks so much for joining us for this important discussion. And let's try to keep this vital conversation going about how we can make meaningful and impactful change in our communities. Together, with a unified approach, we really can make a big difference.